From the AP, the U.S. will send a carrier strike group to the Eastern Mediterranean in support of Israel. So this news came just the other day. It's on top of what we're hearing now from CNN that the U.S. is offering special forces as several of the hostages or some of the hostages taken are believed to be Americans. I was saying this the other day. My concern is if Americans are captured, and some of these, one of the individuals that's taken hostage is an IDF soldier who is a dual citizen, American and Israeli, which creates all sorts of questions about should the U.S. be involved. No question, the U.S. is going to use that. They're going to say that's an American citizen, despite the fact it was also an Israeli citizen fighting on behalf of Israel, in a conflict. But now with the deployment of a carrier strike group, I'm curious the chance by which the U.S. gets involved in a direct conflict, which is a dramatic escalation, and what could possibly happen. Do you think the U.S. I mean, look, the U.S. is involved. This is it. Deploying a carrier strike group is involvement, but where do we see this going?
Hezbollah took out an Israeli cruiser class ship in 2006 with, I think, a French Exocet missile that was smuggled in. It was one of their surprises. So they, in the southern Lebanon, have the capacity to take out ships. I don't think they'd be stupid enough to do this, but you now have U.S. assets in there that are just a trigger point for World War III.
It would probably be better if there were fewer U.S. assets in the area, honestly. Just because like Max is saying, it's
then you have the USS Liberty.
Is this in 2014? I remember Protective Edge kicked off, and I'm hanging out with a bunch of journalists, and they were concerned about a very slim possibility of World War III. That actions taken against Gaza could incite Iran, and then Russia, and then China, and then you get, much like the assassination of Franz Ferdinand was not at that time when that happened. Nobody said, that's it, it's World War I, like the World War started. No, the assassination happened, it got reported, and then over a long period of time, treaties kick in. Eventually, it's called the Great War. We now call it World War I. There was fear that Protective Edge could lead to something like that, but ultimately it didn't. It was 51 days. Now with this, with the U.S. being more directly involved with the active war in Eastern Europe, which is very much related to energy, Syria, the Syrian conflict, and Iraq and a bunch of other countries, and then the fear that China moves on Taiwan, we could be really knocking on a legitimate World War III, knocking on the door of.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Syria in a lot of ways was kind of a laboratory or a sort of a test case for World War III, because you had Russia coming in with Iran and Hezbollah to stop U.S. and Western proxy forces who happened to be aligned with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And Israel was actually supporting Al-Qaeda and ISIS in the Golan. It was giving them weapons. It was allowing them to pass in and out of the Golan. Actually, Moshe Ya'alon, who was the Israeli defense minister at the time, this is a headline: "I would prefer Islamic State to Iran in Syria," in the Times of Israel. You can look that up. So now
is that because of the difference between the Shia and the Sunni Muslims?
That, and that they are just weaker and they don't want to fight Israel because in many ways they're just a creation of the West. I mean, if there is a regional war, all those Al-Qaeda forces in Idlib in Syria that fought the Syrian government, they're not going to be fighting on against Israel, and they're kind of like on Israel's side. Al-Qaeda and ISIS. I mean, just think about that. But what could happen here that I think could set the region on fire is, and it's already happening anyway, is if Israel tries to march on Gaza City. It would be a disaster for them. They'd lose so many people. There would be thousands and thousands of casualties inside Gaza. It's not favorable terrain for Israel.
Didn't IDF go on the ground in 2014?
Yeah, and it didn't go very well for them. They went into an area called Shujaiya east of Gaza City and lost something like 40 soldiers, including officers. They totally underestimated the Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, and they retreated and then blanketed the whole area with howitzers and missiles, which is why that if you look at the rubble from 2014, it's that area. I've been there. We've filmed it. It's in our film, Killing Gaza. But if they go all the way to Gaza City, and they're already softening it up, they've like destroyed an entire neighborhood in the center of Gaza City where all the administrative buildings are, all the cafes, the middle class lives. If they go all the way there and they try to bring down Hamas and occupy that area, Hezbollah will have to enter. They will not allow Hamas to fall. They basically have an informal treaty. And then what can Hezbollah do? They are so much stronger. than Hamas's armed wing. They can actually do targeted strikes throughout Israel. They gave Israel a bloody nose in 2006. Israel failed to defeat them. And I don't know where that will lead. It could then lead to more forces intervening.
Because that'd be Sunni Shia then agreeing with each other. If Hezbollah and Hamas agree, that Sunni and Shia Muslims agreeing to be against Israel, right? So doesn't that open a whole other can of worms as well? It's like with Iran backing Hamas, which is Shia and Sunni, etc. That's a whole thing in itself already.
Well, that's a great question to raise because Saudi Arabia, which we had thought of as sort of the real Sunni power that was supporting the overthrow. They were supporting the overthrow of Syria. They're different now. Mohammed bin Salman has kind of turned his back on the West, and his statement on what happened on October 7th, the attacks inside Israel, was kind of, he didn't condemn it. He said, we just call for peace. And Washington's furious at him. Our gas prices are going up right now.
Yeah.
He's not opening up the tap. He's pissed off.
What's the story of Hezbollah? Who are they? Where did they come from?
Hezbollah is a Shia faction in Lebanon that was really formed in the 1980s when Israel invaded Lebanon. Israel thought that the Shia, because they were a minority that had been mistreated, would be their allies and that they would greet them with candy. But then the Israeli forces started abusing them. Hezbollah formed after the Iranian Revolution with some support from Iran, and they became one of the most powerful forces in resisting Israel as it consistently attempted to occupy and reoccupy Lebanon. And they are responsible for forcing Israel out completely in 2000. They acquired anti-tank weapons. They were training in combined arms tactics. And in 2006, Israel again attempted to destroy Hezbollah. Remember, Condoleezza Rice called it the birth pangs of a new Middle East. Basically a test case for the war with Iran. And they repelled Israel when Israel came in again with tanks. And Hezbollah has only gotten stronger. They are led by a political wing. Hassan Nasrallah is their spiritual leader, and he is an ally of Iran, but not a proxy. He's in many ways, he can influence the strategic calculus that Iran makes. And they do also have Christian supporters because they are they're like a state within the Lebanese state, and they prioritize resisting Israel, which is really popular there. Whereas the Lebanese army is totally trained by the U.S., just like the Palestinian Authority. They're there just to keep the peace. They don't do anything when Israel attacks. And Israel has done so much damage to Lebanon that Hezbollah is just popular. And Hezbollah intervened in Syria in order to defeat al-Qaeda. I actually went to one of the villages where they intervened called Malula, which is the oldest Christian settlement in all of the Middle East. Actually, the Passion of the Christ, if you saw that, all of the extras from the Passion of the Christ came from Malula. They speak Aramaic.
Wow.
It's one of the last places in the world Aramaic is spoken. And al-Qaeda took over.
Wow.
Turkish, NATO-backed forces of al-Qaeda and Qatari-backed, and they took the nuns hostage.
So
and Hezbollah came in and liberated that town.
So can we pull up this
Christian
map?
town.
Pull up this. We have this map here, and take a look at Iran. Look where Iraq and Afghanistan are. Most people don't know their geography.
No.
And so when you wonder about the U.S. involvement in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the U.S. has consistently been trying to, whatever you want to say, like these elements within the U.S. government want war with Iran. And when you understand the Qatar-Turkey pipeline as one small story in all of this, I would say on the surface, it seems that all of this, everything we're talking about, is about supplying Europe with cheaper energy to compete with U.S. adversaries.
Yeah, controlling the trade routes.
Would you agree, or what do you think?
When the U.S. began sanctioning Venezuela and Iran, it had to then take its oil from Russia.
Right. And
now we're sanctioning the crap out of Russia. So the oil prices are going up, and Europe, I mean, they're screwed. Germany doesn't have a plan B. The Green Party is in their governing coalition. They wanted to take even nuclear offline. Now they're bringing what, 26 coal-fired plants back online.
But why are they doing that? Why not just go nuclear?
Because they're the Green Party. I mean, it's completely ideological.
This is insane.
So the point is,
More people need to hear
this
that.
This is blowing back this entire drive for war with Iran, regime change in Venezuela, having turning Ukraine into an unsinkable aircraft carrier. It's destroying Europe, which the U.S. kind of likes for now because we sell them our liquid natural gas that they weren't trying to buy. But it will eventually come back here, and it's hurting the American consumer already. Everybody's feeling it.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.